Throughout our lives, there are things that give us meaning and inspiration, with fiction being one of them. Fiction is a significant part of us. People tell stories that contain messages, truths that cannot be expressed better in any other way. In modern times, series are a very ordinary hobby for people, a moment to relax after a hard day, to lose yourself in the imagination of a writer. Yet there are moments when fiction and art in general transcends its mere role as entertainment, elevating us to realms of profound introspection and reshaping our perception of reality. The German philosopher Gadamer viewed art as a vehicle for liberation, allowing individuals to break free from conventional perceptions and explore profound aspects of reality. A.C. Grayling says in his History of Philosophy about Gadamer that he takes art as especially revealing of the nature of truth, for it demonstrates that truth is an event, something that happens as we are drawn into a realization that art presents us with something beyond ourselves. Now, anime is a medium, a cover to communicate a substance, to share something possibly important. Steins Gate is one such story. It is, in my opinion, the greatest one, and this is why I chose to make this video. Having immersed myself in its world through multiple viewings, playing the visual novel and exploring various analyses, I'm convinced it's a masterpiece of storytelling. And so this is what I have come up with. In this video we embark on a journey through the multifaceted themes of Steins Gate, examining its exploration of existence, meaning, free will, fate, love, and what makes us who we are. There will be obviously spoilers for the anime. It will also contain some themes from Steins Gate Zero. Also, I'm planning on making a episode by episode series analyzing every moment, or most of them, I guess. At the first sight, and as Kurisu points out, Steins Gate is a phrase which is composed by two words, a German word Steins and the English word gate. And together they mean nothing. They are not coherent, and thus we stumble into our first philosophical realm. What do words mean? If you look up a word's definition, the definition includes other words, that their definition includes other words, and at some point you find the same vocabulary being used. In that sense, every definition is in its essence circular. Also, a lot of words seem unable to be defined sufficiently, like the word game. Even though you have an intuition of when something is a game, it is hard to find a good definition to put into words what it is. The Austrian philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein says that this doesn't matter. We know what we mean by words with how our environment treats them and how they react to them. So Okabe throughout the show uses the word Steins Gate, while we and the other characters seem to view it as nonsense, something made up by a self-proclaimed mad scientist. But when you finish the series, Steins Gate has obtained meaning. It has taken a status in our minds and evaluations. In language, we need some point of reference, a holistic view to place things in order for them to make sense, to communicate their meaning. And that holistic construction, in this case, is the Steins Gate's narrative. In the visual novel, when someone asks him what the Steins Gate means, Okabe answers Steins Gate is Steins Gate, nothing more, nothing less, because there's nothing to be said about it yet. There is also a matter of evolution here. We will see how the meaning of the phrase "this is the choice of Steins Gate" changes throughout the series. Those word games, as Wittgenstein calls them, seem to do something important. They connect us with each other. Consider the intricate web of relationships that Okabe navigates throughout the series, from his quirky conversations with fairies to the array of affectionate nicknames he bestows upon Kurisu, Mayuri being a hostage, Ruka supposedly exorcising demons from his hand. Each interaction is akin to a puzzle piece, fitting snugly into the larger tapestry of their relationships. For example, Kurisu being called as we learn later in the visual novel, was because Okabe was hiding his embarrassment of how amazing she was, how smart and radiant. Christina serves as a shield for Okabe, masking his awe and admiration for Kurisu's intellect and charisma. These playful monikers are more than mere words. They are tools for building and reinforcing the bonds between characters, like memes that hold the fabric of their relationships together. In these conditions, Okabe persona comes in. Okabe's persona as Kyoma assumes a central role. Kyoma speaks in a language all his own, eschewing conventional norms and inventing his own idiosyncratic wordplay. He does not play the normal word games. Through Kyoma, Okabe establishes a unique connection with others, a space for the lab members to rest, to find comfort. Kyoma becomes the cornerstone upon which the lab operates, providing stability and a sense of belonging to its members. But what happens when things turn upside down? What is Kyoma at that point? As Okabe says, it is a fiction, something he just made up. At that state, he seems to not have realized the power of it or the potential it still has. Kyoma is the tool by which genuine Okabe's will, his true desires and aspirations take place. It's also worth noting that Okabe's relationships hold such a unique and different meanings for each individual. As depicted in the movie, everyone has their own unique way of addressing him, a testament to the multifaceted nature of their bonds and the fluidity of identity within their group. When delving into reviews and analysis of Steins Gate, a prevalent theme that emerges is the exploration of free will versus determinism. Now, an important distinction to make is between determinism and fatalism. Fatalism says that no matter what you do, the result is the same. You cannot change the facts of it by your actions. In that sense, your actions are meaningless. In determinism, though, your actions do matter. They are the cause of the effect. It is just the case that your actions could not have been otherwise. Under the same circumstances, with every atom of the universe in the same place, given the causation, you could not have acted differently. In Steins' Gate, the world-line convergence mechanic is a kind of fatalistic idea. Even though Okabe can change some outcomes, these are events that are meant to happen, no matter the way the outcome is settled. However, the fact that they are different convergences can also lead us to view Okabe's ability to navigate through them as him being able, in a deterministic model, change the facts of the matter. And it's true that a pervasive theme of determinism exists in the narrative through various ways, and also in this Kurisu quote, which I think is one of the most important lines in Steins' Gate.
過去を変えるなんてなんか卑怯な感じがするから。私の人生はたかだか18年だけど、改変なんかしたくない。失敗したことも含めて自分の人生なんだから。
This is the main point of the story, really. Who we are is the result of the past, our experiences, the time and place we were born. Our friends, family, and interactions with the world shape us and define ourselves. Changing the past is, in a way, stealing from people what they are, what they have become. Changing the past in light of future understanding, but that future requires the past to exist. And that is the logic of the ending of Steins' Gate. A way of self-love and acceptance requires an understanding and acceptance of the past. I will now introduce the 17th century Dutch philosopher Baruch Spinoza. Spinoza had a very scientific, rational, and yet inspiring, even some might say spiritual view of the world. You might already know that Einstein said that if he believed in some God, it would be Spinoza's God. Spinoza's God is synonymous with nature or everything. The universe is God, arguing that there can only be one substance, and everything is a mode or form of that oneness, this one substance. For Spinoza, free will does not exist, at least libertarian free will, the idea that we could have done otherwise. But there is a freedom we can reach with the understanding of nature/God, the one substance that exists. See, for Spinoza, the acceptance of determinism and to realize the truth about how things are is what gives us freedom. Knowledge is freedom. For example, while people feel we lose the idea of free will, the more we understand our bioneurology, with abandoning the wonder of our undefined choices. Spinoza would see us more free as we do that, finding ourselves in the midst of ignorance with the light of the scientific method. And so the highest activity a human being can attain is learning for understanding, to understand the causes that necessarily lead to the effect, because to understand is to be free. The way to see what that freedom means is with his concept of conatus. Conatus is the innate inclination of a thing to continue existing and enhance itself. It means that the more conatus a thing has, the more it can flourish in the world. It is less affected by nature and has more power over the things around it. We can view conatus as will and the power to affect, and this is freedom, the ability to achieve our goals. And to achieve our goals, we need to know how God/nature works. The more adequate our ideas, the more active we are. The less adequate, the more we are on the receiving end of events. And thus, divine will is not an external force, but an inherent aspect of our rational capacity. It is our will.
Aligning oneself with the will of the divine by accepting everything.
Yes, but the will of the divine is not separate from our own will. When we align ourselves with it, we realize that it was our will all along.
And again, this will be super relevant to the Steins Gate ending. Now, I know this part will seem weird. What does Hegel have to do with Steins Gate? What I'm doing right now is laying out some themes through which we can unravel the story. Did the writer envision those themes? I don't know, it is unlikely, but that is not that much relevant. A work of art can acquire its own life and significance independent of the artist who created it. At least that's a way of looking at it. The interpretation and value of a work of art can evolve and change when coming in contact with another mind. And this leads almost too perfectly to our new theme, Hegel's dialectic. Now, Hegel is a very important and controversial figure in the history of philosophy, but his influence on it is huge. He presents us with an epic story, a journey of the spirit to unravel, to find itself through history. The main idea here, without delving deep into Hegel's metaphysics, is that there is a process from which a thesis and an antithesis collide. So we have a thing and we negate that thing. This interaction eventually resolves into a bigger, a higher synthesis. This new synthesis would now be a thesis with an antithesis, which will lead to a new synthesis, and so on and so on. Through this process, the Geist, which is the collective spirit or consciousness, evolves and self-actualizes. This is also important for the person. Reflect, for example, on how many conversations you have had in your life and how many times your understanding has shifted to a more nuanced one from the one you had before. Of course, a lot of times you might even become more dogmatic to your beliefs if the other person's arguments are that bad. But I digress. Hegel posits that every existing state of affairs contains inherent contradictions or tensions between opposing elements. These contradictions drive change and development as they create a need for resolution. There is a negation that takes place here which leads to self-realization. To comprehend this a little better, let's see Hegel's view on Christianity. For Hegel, the sacrifice of Jesus is the way from which God as substance, by separating itself from itself, discovers itself and reflects upon the essence of existence. The dialectic will be very important in this analysis, but before that, think about what the Steins Gate word line is for a little. Hegel also recognizes a necessary relation of mutual determination of the finite to the infinite. For both Spinoza and Hegel, the interconnectedness of everything with each other is something crucial. We understand the thing as a relation with the other things. And so consciousness expands and achieves self-knowledge looking to itself through the eyes of the other. During and after the Enlightenment and the scientific discoveries, humanity's perspective of its place in the cosmos radically changed, with the theory of evolution proving that we are just products of natural processes, with the discovery of the unconceivable large scale of the universe. We realized that we are not the center of it. Not even close, actually. In this void of being, there seems to be no one to get us out, no one to save us from the reality of emptiness. In the 19th and 20th century, existentialism drew much attention with figures like Sartre. If nothing outside of us gives us meaning, then we give meaning to our lives. And if we are acting as if it's an external force, we play a role, as Sartre would put it, of being something that we are not. We are acting on bad faith, trying to be what we cannot be. Now, Okabe is not Kyoma, and when Kurisu declares that she is in the movie, for example, she's not. It's a fiction. But if meaning is subjective and a construct of our minds, then what does that indicate here? The Kyoma fiction is powerful and obtains meaning by its self-fulfillment. So, if life does not have any telos, any purpose, then we have to focus on the journey. We should experience and dance on the edge of the hill of our mortal existence. What happens when we realize our fragile nature? Kurisu quotes Heidegger, humans are temporal beings. And so maybe if we realize our nature, we dance more easily. This video did not include Heidegger as part of it originally. However, the channel Max Deret uploaded a video on Steins Gate with Heideggerian analysis on it, and as he says, Heidegger is in fact mentioned in Steins Gate 2 times. As I said, Kurisu mentions him, and he's the only philosopher named in the anime. This helped me see how some parts that would lead me to express some things made more sense through the Heideggerian view. So, what is Heidegger's general philosophy? Heidegger's starting point was to examine being itself, with the relation of the subject to itself and the world, and the authenticity of being by the realization of being in that connection to something else, suggesting that our understanding of being is always situated within a context. Heidegger calls this type of being as Dasein, which is translated along the lines of being here. We cannot separate being from the world and the relations we have within it. Now, the first time I read about Heidegger, I thought he was talking about being in the most possibly abstract sense. But I was wrong. He's talking about our sense of here and now, our temporal existence facing death. Death is the reason our lives have meaning. To face and realize our mortality, is to accept and fulfill being. So, in a series where we face death all the time, and yet those deaths can be avoided, we find ourselves in a very weird case where we overcome the normal encounter with death. Mayuri seems to embody Dasein. She is just there, living the moment. And what happens through the series is we trying to save being itself. If Mayuri embodies Dasein, embodies being, then trying to save Mayuri is trying to establish existence itself. The first half of Steins Gate is boring, you hear all the time. Even from die-hard fans of the show, this meme has become something close to accepted in the Steins Gate community, to the point where when you suggest the anime to someone, you end up warning them that the first half or so is boring so they don't lose hope. My experience the first time was not like this at all. I found it extremely interesting and spooky at some places. The discovery of how they sent messages to the past and hacking into CERN, the funny dialogues, the memes were really fun and enjoyable. Nevertheless, let's advance from my experience back then to how I view the first half now and how its importance should be viewed from a particular landscape to be valued. First of all, a lot of things happen in the first half actually. We have the establishment of the major plot points, mysteries, foreshadowings. We learn about the characters, their dynamics develop as them experimenting with time travel. As is often said by many, the first episodes are crucial to set the stage for the roller coaster of emotion that starts by the end of episode 12. Something a lot of people don't realize is that the latter half also set the stage for the value of the first half. It is a time travel show after all. Yet it is the case that after you rewatch the show, the first half is actually more precious. Your view or understanding about it has shifted, has evolved. Here we are talking about a dialectic between the ordinary and the extraordinary. So what is ordinary? The ordinary is the common, the expected. It can be a place of comfort, stability. It gives a sense of structure, following a schedule that provides certainty. As we said, the lab and Okabe are the conditions for this environment existing. The dialectic here is that while we see the lab members doing random everyday stuff, which leads a lot of people calling the first half slice of life-ish, they also have made the discovery of the century by stumbling upon a time machine. They are literally changing the past. Meanwhile, Daru is making perverted jokes, Mayuri making cosplay costumes, Okabe calling Kurisu
Christina 助手だろクリスティーナ貴様おのれクリスティーナ悪かったなザ・ゾンビよこのゾンビ名ザ・ゾンビザ・ゾンビ変態天才少女よとうとう天才変態少女というわけか
All of that is happening at the same time. There are also, throughout the show, some very charming silent moments where characters don't speak at all, and that is pure being, it is Dasein. At these times, we are at a place of reflection, where after the last dialectic process, we do some contemplation, not as a move, but as a still consistent meditation on simply being. These scenes create a really powerful experience, contrasting the madness of a lot of what happened. There is a profound elegance in our everyday experience that we just fail to see most of the time. There is no need for something exciting to capture our interest. Paying close attention to the nature of consciousness, to the nature of being, to our surroundings, and contacting reality at its purest form is deeply liberating. These scenes bring us to a state of examining pure being, pure connection. In retrospect, the first half of Steins is not just a prelude to the main event, but an essential component of the narrative's depth and richness. A lot of channels seem to go one way or the other in their reviews and analysis, either going deep into the aspects of free will, determinism and fate, time travel, its implications and mechanics. On the other hand, channels like Whipjail view those extraordinary aspects as simply a tool for the narrative, a distraction you contrast with the real meaning of the show, which is the mundane, the ordinary and everyday value we seem to not see. And so there seems to be some black and white tendencies in this. I think we should value both, as both give meaning to each other in the dialectic process, and each has their reason to exist. All of that leads, of course, to episode 12, the episode all the build-up pays and the roller coaster begins. Okabe constantly failing to save Mayuri is hurtful. See, we said before that knowledge is freedom, yet here Okabe has the most knowledge and he is in despair. He knows how things play out while the others don't, but he can't seemingly do anything about it. In episode 11, Mayuri and Okabe have this conversation.
マユシーは難しすぎてさっぱりで。
クリスティーナも言っていたではないかの、この自分の意識を過去に飛ばすのだ。
あれ、でも記憶を過去に送った後の自分はどうなっちゃう？それと今マユシーはこうやってオカリンとお話しした。そのマユシーが1週間前に飛んで1週間をやり直したとするでしょ。ないように行動したらどうなっちゃうのかな。
それはおそらくマユリの中に記憶は残るがいう事実は消える。
シはお話ししたことを覚えてるのにオカリンは全然知らないってことだらね。なんだか寂しいね。
俺が？
マユシーが。
Mayuri here explains how time leaping is creating something sad. The person who does it is left with the memories of what happened, but the people they happened with don't remember them. It is a lost connection, something only viewed by one side when it should have also been viewed by the other. And so Okabe is lonely again. Knowledge can bring pain, it can bring loneliness. And in this case, even more specifically, time traveling leads to loneliness. It can bring a burden one cannot lift on his own. How can knowledge then be freedom? Okabe had sent D-mails to make the wishes of his friends true, and when he has to undo them, they accept that in the end. But who is the most important companion? Kurisu. Kurisu, as she tells him in episode 19, is there for him, every time in every word line.
忘れないで。あなたはどの世界線にいても一人じゃない。私がいる。
There to share the burden and help him. It is not just the individual and his knowledge. The dialectic expands with the other person. When we talk with each other, we update our understanding, getting closer to truth and freedom. Okabe proceeds to sacrifice all of the wishes of his friends, and in the end he has to sacrifice Kurisu herself. When Suzuha explains the situation, and later the lab members help her find her father, only to realize it was Dar all along, the series shows again the value of companionship, the importance of having a community, a lab to be a part of, and then it shatters all of that with having to cancel it by erasing everything. The cost of those friendships are for Suzu to fail, and yet Okabe proceeds to save Mayuri. In all of the other cases, Okabe realizes the complexity and absurdness of causality and the butterfly effect. He explores or even invades the deeper parts of his friends' lives. Mr. Brown working as a secret CERN dog, Moeka's loneliness, Fairy's regret over the situation with her dad, Ruka's love for him that will never be able to be expressed because he's a guy, and also Suzuha's search for a place to belong, while in the end she won't be able to know who her father was. All those unfulfilled desires that were given to them and now taken away were each their most important and dear wish, but their wishes were never meant to be. Steins Gate, from that angle, teaches us to live with how things are, to love and accept who we are and cherish our companions. We overcome obstacles with companionship. We evolve and understand things better through the other, through their ideas and their connection with us. Okabe and Kurisu's relationship development from start to finish is being built slowly and methodically. It is truly romance being done perfectly in fiction, nothing clearly hinting from the start, just the moments they share and the trials they face together. Every interaction is precious and every part adds to the whole picture. Kurisu is such a great character in general. She is smart, strong, independent. She shows compassion, but she is also vulnerable. She has lost the connection with her father, one of the reasons she became so advanced in science. When she opens up to Okabe about her father, an extremely important part of her is exposed to him. The things they share like the promise he makes to help her with her father, tie them together. It is also interesting how from the first time she met Okabe, she heard him talk about her father, and it felt like Okabe had already a part of her. Kurisu every time is rational, calm, yet deep inside she is questioning everything. When she learns that if Okabe saves Mayuri and the world from the dystopia, then she will be dead, she tries to find excuses why that is not a bad thing and how Okabe must go ahead. Kurisu encourages Okabe in episode 14 with becoming Kyoma. When Kyoma is lost, Kurisu maintains it. She keeps observing the essence of Kyoma. She becomes an actual assistant. Kurisu lets Okabe in more every time, wanting her personal fork, for example. After every time leap, Okabe knows more about Kurisu. After every time leap, Okabe understands more about everything around him, and remember to time travel is to be alone. Yet if a strong love for someone transcends time and place itself, then it serves as the reminder of the ultimate reality of unity and that you are not alone. Okabe is never alone. Kurisu is always there, as she said in episode 19. See, in the very old trope of the hero saving the princess, there is a huge thing that is missing. The hero must also be saved by the princess. This is what creates a beautiful synthesis. Kurisu's sacrifice is a symbol of love. In episode 22, we see her deeper part, the desire to be loved, to be viewed as important, like how Okabe values Mayuri and suffers to save her. Later, Kurisu realizes that Okabe suffers for her too and is actually in love with her. Now, going away from Okabe and Kurisu for a moment, why does Okabe forgive Moeka? Is it just because she apologized before she died? Not really. See, that Moeka did not do anything. The thing is, Okabe understood that the person Moeka had become was not really her choice. From God's view, we are just causality expressed in different ways. In the other timelines, Moeka did what she did because the way things developed had to do with the prior causes and how the butterfly effect works out. And so realizing that hate is not rational, only love is. Kurisu and Okabe did not have a beginning. Their love is eternal. In a sense, it defies causation. It is set in place, and it is a product of her death. It is becoming through not being. Kurisu has to die to live and fall in love with Okabe, who accidentally kills her for having to save her. Christ having to die for God to become God, which is love. Christina. Okay, I stop. Love, in that sense, is reached by death and saved by itself through the will of the universe, or the will of Okabe in this case. In this life, we barely understand ourselves. How rare and how precious and how lucky are we if we find someone to understand and be understood by. Kurisu becomes Okabe's assistant not in the experiments but for his fight with fate, the fight with the universe. Steins Gate is actually the biggest love story ever, I realized after finishing the story with the movie after the fourth time. It is about Okabe saving Kurisu, Kurisu saving Okabe, with observing one another. What does Okabe say to Kurisu at the train station? Are you lost? We are all lost until we are found by our observer. The synthesis is what gives us existence. Every connection forms us, forms the self, the identity. Kurisu is lost and Okabe is lost until they collide again, because no matter the world line, the place or time, Okabe loves her, and no matter the world line Okabe is in, he is not alone. Kurisu will be there. She will find him. If God is love and God is the totality of existence, then to deeply understand the other is to love the other. It is to be liberated from the illusion of separation. This love, this profound thread, persists across the infinite space and time of the universe. Love is the yearning for eternity. It is the longing for immortality. This love represents a synthesis of becoming through overcoming trials, embodying the ultimate realization of self and other. Now, some people in the community seem to misunderstand an important thing. They say that Mayuri is the most important character because Okabe goes through everything to save her. And also, she represents the ordinary, the simplicity of being, which, as we said before, is true. She does represent Dasein. She, in fact, is that glue that holds everything together. And the death of Mayuri is a metaphor for the death of being. As we said, to save Mayuri means to save being, to save the here and now, the self. It is the death-huntedness, as said, and the mortality in which we all participate. Okabe fighting against that symbolizes the everyday existential battles we all face. Now, all of that being said, I think the people who say Mayuri is the most important character are missing the next point, the fulfillment of the whole story, because we need to save Mayuri to save our being, our here and now, but with Kurisu we overcome the mere here and now. We transcend through love. We connect to the bigger essence of existence, to a larger part that is beyond ourselves. And that is the final point of the story. It is all Kurisu. Kurisu becomes the main theme, with her significance being slowly built while our attention is elsewhere. She becomes through not being, even when she was all along. In this life we are alone, lost in a world we seem unable to understand or be understood by. Dogmas and ideologies collect us in belongings. They tell us what is right, what is ethical, what is the correct way for the world to be. But there is a way to outgrow those and find connection at its purest form. This is love. In episode 22, Kurisu says this.
世界線の私が死んでいたとしても、今ここにいる私が死ぬ保証はどこにもない。世界線に別の私がいるかもしれない。その意志がつながって自分という存在があるのかもしれない。それって素敵だと思わない？あらゆる時、あらゆる場所に自分がいる。誰かを愛する強い気持ちが、何かを信じる強い感情が、何かを伝えたいという強い思いが時を超えつながって今の自分があるのだとしたら、それは素晴らしいこと。世界線が変わってもたった一人岡部が忘れなければ私はそこにいる。だから
In this scene, it feels like Kurisu and Okabe are the only two persons in the world, because they are. In Okabe's world, there is only Kurisu at that moment, and so in Kurisu's world, The world around them seems to be erased, seems to be dead in a sense. Again, in the Hegelian view, love negates itself, it distances itself from itself to be connected again, to make that whole move into actualization. Okabe loses Kurisu to find her again, for the whole being is self-loved only in its move from separation and reconnection, and so is saved from the despair of emptiness. It is clear as day to me that Okabe and Kurisu illustrate the essence of love and its ultimate actualization. As in Heidegger's idea of revelation, the solution of how to save Kurisu has been revealed to the being, and now Okabe is in the time, place and timeline to reach Steins Gate. In episode 23 of Steins Gate 0, after successfully sending Suzu and Mayuri to the past, Okabe says this epic line, "This is my choice." For some time, I had this thought that this was narratively ahead of the ending of Steins Gate. In episode 24, where Okabe says once again, "This is the choice of Steins Gate," as if still believing in the external fate and not taking matters into his own hands. But I was wrong. The scene in Steins Gate 0, it just makes more clear what has already been said in the original Steins Gate. The choice of Steins Gate evolved from "this happened and I don't know why," or maybe the universe willed it and we can not do anything about it, to "we express our will and our choices, free or not, matter and affect things. The choice of Steins Gate is Okabe's choice, after all. To understand is to be free. To understand is to love. When we see the video the future Okabe sent, there is Okabe needing to fail to succeed. Kurisu had to die to be saved. To save Kurisu, we must understand the causality, not to override those memories, not to override what happened, what is, what was, to embrace the people we have become, to love ourselves and to embrace our memories. You must not waste those 3 weeks to deeply being connected with the understanding of how things are, how things work, and being able to achieve the goals and to overcome the trials through knowledge and through love. Now, raising our hand to the sky is usually understood as a religious shout-out for help, asking God or the universe for mercy. In the case of Mayuri, we can see her reach for the stars in hope of salvation, in hope fate has it right, in hope of transcendence. But when Okabe does it in the end of episode 23, he grabs the sun. He says, "The world is in the palm of my hand," as if holding fate itself, as if taking control of the natural laws. It's because the choice of Steins Gate, as we said, is none other than his choice, and the will of the universe is his will. Freedom is to obtain more conatus, to be acting on things more, to be acting on things from our own self-determination, rather than being acted by external causes. Through understanding the world, we express our will and meaning to the world. In the scene where Okabe realizes the fake blood doesn't work, at that moment in the visual novel, he catches himself praying. and says, "What are you doing, Kyoma? Praying? I won't ask for help from a merciless God." See, there is no personal God to save us. Only we can save us. A human being can only be saved from another human being. The main series ending is so cathartic. It is the release from the pressure, reaching the destination and being restored. It is where alpha attractor field and beta attractor field collide and negate to create the Steins gate synthesis, the Steins gate world line. Steins gate is a place of belonging. Steins gate is the universe, the self. It is fate. It is will. It is love. It is an emotion. It is everything. Yet it does not really mean anything, right? When I watched Steins Gate for the first time, I did it with the chronological order, which means watching Steins Gate up to episode 22, then watching the alternative episode 23, where I actually ended up also watching the normal episode 23, but let's not talk about that, okay? Then Steins Gate 0, then finishing the original Steins Gate, and then watching the OVA and the movie. Now, I'm not interested in the chronological versus release order discussion here, and I know that most of the community thinks release order is the best, especially when you watch Steins Gate for the first time. But one, I did not know it then, and two, I had an amazing experience this way. The ending, the OVA and movie hit really hard and felt truly incredible. After that, I have watched Steins Gate 0 one more time on its own, and except episode 8, which is like top 5 Steins Gate episodes of all time, it does not hold up that great on its own. I do think it is like an 8 or a 9 out of 10, but not at the level of what the original does. The reason that is the case is because Steins Gate 0 is pure negation in Hegelian terms, which, by the way, I think is the meaning of the zero in the title. Not that it is a prequel, but that it actually negates the essence of the original, for the original to be lifted to a higher level of fulfillment. We almost only see darkness and despair. We see giving up. Even the ending, which people find epic and amazing, leaves an unsatisfactory bittersweetness. Steins Gate Zero's role is only negation, which does add to Steins Gate, establishing and exploring some things more clearly. For example, as I said before about the "this is my choice" line. And so it is in its pure negation we should find its value.
There's a love that transcends all that we've known of ourselves, and I wait for it to come. I wait for it.
I don't want to say too much here in hope that I will reach this with the episode by episode analysis series I am going to make, but here is the main thing. I love it. The Steins Gate OVA, or episode 25, is the greatest OVA in existence that I am aware of. When I watched it the first time, I was blown away by the impact it had on me. After all of the Steins Gate and Steins Gate Zero emotional roller coaster, we have all these fun, simple and adorable character interactions we missed so much. We get more Okabe and Kurisu moments, one more confession, and knowing that Kurisu remembers some parts and her feelings indeed transcend and find the place they belong, all of this is beyond precious and deeply captivating. The light-hearted and goofy elements are just so fun and liberating. The OVA episode is a long meditation on the essence of the whole series. It goes and makes the whole movement again into the actualization of love. As with the OVA, I won't go very deep into the movie, but there is a question. What does the movie add to the narrative? Now we see the same thing, but this time it is Kurisu doing the work to save her love. She gets to taste some of Okabe's pain, what he went through, to understand him more, to connect with him more. Deja vu takes a place in the narrative, being interpreted as memories from another world line. It is the self realizing it cannot define itself clearly. Things do not add up. A feeling that something is left out of the picture, the incompleteness of the spirit where the other half is missing. Finally, there is the idea of having to be observed to be something, to see yourself through the eyes of the other, to find yourself. Kurisu observes Okabe and saves him, just like Okabe observed Kurisu and kept her alive, a mutual gaze that gives meaning to each other. The movie expands and fulfills not only the original line from episode 19, but also the Steins Gate story as a whole with this.
忘れないで。どの世界線にいようと、あんたは一人じゃない。どこにいようと、私が見つける。あんたを観測し続ける。あんたが私を観測し続けてくれたように。
When I finished Steins Gate for the first time, I was absolutely overwhelmed by it. For at least a month, I really could not get past it. In the first 2 weeks, I would literally wake up with this image in my mind, or dreaming this image, I guess. I would watch Okabe x Kurisu moments on YouTube. I would listen to the songs, the OSTs. I would search posts and discussions about it. I was just beyond captivated. And to be honest, I don't think I have really recovered yet after more than 3 years. Still am captivated. Playing the visual novel, rewatching and coming in contact with the community, its reviews, different ideas, and feelings towards the series, all of that has evolved my affection towards Steins Gate. Steins Gate's meaning is not just something internal to the series. For me, it is now also a distinct feeling, a connection to something truly profound. In this life, we try to conceptualize things, to put them in place, to make sense of them, to put a framework around them. With narratives and art, we are driven closer to ourselves. We reach for the sublime, and maybe, just maybe, sometimes we hold it for a moment. And such a moment I found in Steins Gate.